Our first error on this list is the misalignment print error, which can happen in any portion of the three-phase printing process for US banknotes. The first print of the process prints the back of the note. The second print prints the front of the note, including the portrait and the border. And the last phase of printing is the overprint, which adds certain elements of the front of the note, which can include serial numbers and the seals. Misalignment errors, which can occur during any of these three stages, happen when a full sheet of paper notes gets out of alignment during the process of being printed. Normal notes have an even border around the engraved picture in the front and back. Sometimes, when the sheet of bills gets out of alignment during printing, the note will have uneven borders, a truncated design, or even part of the next note's design left on it. Typically, misaligned notes will appear well-centered on one side of the note and off-center on the other side of the note. Here is an example of a misalignment error on the first print of a US banknote. This note displays a dramatic error on its back that might appear at first glance to be a cutting error. However, the front of the note is still well-centered. This indicates that the note was somehow misaligned during its first print, which resulted in an error note. This note in particular sold at auction for over $1,500. This next note is a misalignment error on the second print and demonstrates a misalignment during the second printing, which resulted in both serial numbers incorrectly touching elements beneath them and the green seal that is not horizontally aligned with the word 20. In this case, the third print is actually in the correct place, but the second print is too high. This can really be seen at the top of the note, where it looks almost cut off. This next note is a misaligned overprint error. The note shows a misaligned overprint error, and at first glance, the note appears to be normal, with the engravings on both sides appearing centered. But looking more closely at the note, the serial numbers and seal on the front of the note appear to be horizontally shifted. The green seal sits far to the left of the word 1, and the 6s run into the border and Henry Paulson's signature. An extra note about misalignment errors is that it's not just on US banknotes. For example, take this Chinese 1 Fen note, which shows a misalignment error on the back of the note. This particular note sold at a Stax Bowers auction in October of 2021 for well over $500. At number 2, the next error on this list is missing print errors. These errors sound exactly like the title, meaning that a portion of the note was not printed during the three-phase printing process for US banknotes. These are an extremely rare error, as it would mean that the banknote sheet was entirely passed over, generally in the first or second printing phase of the printing process, resulting in an error banknote which has elements of its design completely missing from the note. In auction, these notes have been seen selling for an upwards of $4,000 to $5,000, as they are quite rare. Older versions of notes, such as large-size notes, can sell for tens of thousands of dollars. The third error on this list are gutter fold errors. A gutter fold error occurs when a fold becomes embedded within the paper prior to ink reaching it. When the paper is later unfolded, there will be a gap in the design of the note. Sometimes this white space is quite prominent, other times it is minuscule. As you can see with this 1995 $100 Federal Reserve note, the gutter fold is also significantly affecting the cutting stage. The fold occurred after the first print was done on the back of the note, where the design appears normal. This note sold in November of 2022 for well over $3,000 at a Stax Bowers auction. Gutter folds can affect all stages of printing. This 1934A $500 Federal Reserve note shows a gutterfold error running through the back seal on the front and the last A in America on the back. The crease was evidently present before any ink made it into the paper and remained until the printing process was completed. Sometimes the error is isolated to only one part of the printing process. For example, this 1977 $50 Federal Reserve note has a normal back and mostly normal front, but the stage of printing involving the seals and serial numbers clearly shows a gutterfold error. This fold in this paper was evidently resolved before the note was cut from the sheet. This particular note realized over $1,000 in an heritage auction in June of 2022. The fourth error on this list is mismatched serial numbers. As you know, banknotes typically have two serial numbers. A mismatch in these numbers can occur by manual error or mechanical error. Under a manual error, the person operating the printing equipment fails to set the same sequence on both number wheels before printing begins. When mismatched serial numbers have the discrepancy near the beginning of the number, this is due to manual error. An example is the G5554 error seen on this bill, which is a 1957 $1 silver certificate. The G5554 error represents a well-known group of notes with a mismatched serial number error. These silver certificates entered commerce in Fort Benning, Georgia in 1963, a year before silver certificates were phased out. When the mismatch occurs at the end of the serial number, that is often a mechanical error. This happens when one of the numbering machines gets stuck on a number and fails to advance properly. This 1963 $1 Federal Reserve note has a mismatched serial number error where the difference between the number is 1. This note in particular sold at a Stax Bowers auction in 2022 in April for $1,500. The next error on our list at number 5 is the printed fold error. A printed fold error occurs when the sheet accidentally becomes folded in between phases of the printing process. For example, the design looks normal on the backside of this 1928 $5 Federal Reserve note, but on the front, a fold created a gap in the printing on the right side of the note. The backside of the Federal Reserve notes are printed first, so we can conclude that a fold occurred at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing facility between the first and second printings. Now, printed fold errors are not to be confused with gutter fold errors, another type of error we mentioned earlier that can create this kind of gap in the design. However, in gutter folds, the fold occurs before any printing takes place. The next error on our list is reverse overprints. This error is a result of an uncut sheet being fed into a press with the obverse of the note facing the overprinting press. The information printed by the overprinting press, including the Treasury and Federal Reserve district seals, district numbers, and serial numbers, are printed on the back of the note as opposed to the front of the note. Such a note would be missing these elements from the front and instead have them displayed on the reverse of the note. These notes typically sell in auction for close to $5,000 to $10,000. The next error on this list is inverted overprint errors. Certain elements in a banknote design, such as serial numbers and seals, are added to sheets of banknotes through a separate printing process and referred to as an overprint. When sheets are oriented incorrectly during the overprinting process, the result is an inverted overprint error. This 1976 $2 Federal Reserve note is the more common type of inverted overprint error, where the overprint is on the correct side of the note. As you can see, the serial numbers and seals, which are part of the third printing, appear to be printed upside down. This particular note sold for $2,760 at a heritage auction in 2021. The next error to keep an eye out for is sometimes referred to as the king of errors. This is a dual denomination error. It's pretty straightforward. To understand what this error is, the denomination on the front of the note does not match the one on the back of the note. An example of this is a 1914 $20 Federal Reserve note with a $10 back. This particular note sold in a heritage auction in May of 2022 for over $40,000. The next error on this list is over-ink or ink smear errors. This error can happen when the oscillating wiper on the printing equipment doesn't properly remove excess ink, or when the inkjets malfunction and disperse more ink than is needed to print the note. For example, the front of this 1963A $1 Federal Reserve note has a very noticeable ink smear error, along with a red Bureau of Engraving and Printing rejection mark at the left-hand side of the note. The estimated value for this note from heritage auctions was $3,000. An ink smear error can occur on either side of the note and is not limited to just black ink. Another example is this 1969C $20 Federal Reserve note that has an ink smear error involving the green ink on the back of the note. Now, the value of an ink smear error can vary depending on how dramatic the error is. The 1969A $50 Federal Reserve note featured here, showing President Grant looking as if he had a bucket of paint poured on his head, sold for well over $3,000 due to the depiction the ink smear created. The next error on our list is an insufficient inking error. This error occurs when the ink fountain doesn't fill the printing plate with enough ink. This example of an insufficient inking error occurred during the second print on this $20 1995 Federal Reserve note. This error occurred when the front of the note was being printed. The seals and serial number are unaffected. This is because they are printed at a later time in the third print. Now, an insufficient inking error on a banknote is similar to what happens when someone tries to print something using a computer printer with an ink cartridge that's nearly out of ink. Another example is this $1 1977 Federal Reserve note that shows the entire reverse of the note with insufficient ink. These notes typically sell at auction anywhere between $500 and $2,000. The next error on our list is a blank reverse or blank back error. This error can occur on any denomination of US banknote and has also been seen on other notes around the world. For example, this $100 banknote features a blank back. This is due to two sheets of banknotes being fed into the printing press at the same time, generally during the first print. This results in one sheet not having a reverse side of the banknote printed on them. These notes are extremely rare, of course, and sell for generally in the thousands of dollars at auction. The next error on our list is the double print or multi-print error. This printing error occurs when the print is struck by the intaglio plate more than once, usually resulting in a very blurry appearance. For example, this 1988A $10 Federal Reserve note shows doubling on the first print or the backside of the note. Often, one of the printings in a double print error looks fainter than the other. This error is distinguishable from an offset printing error, which involves a mirror image of the other side of the note. The 1977 $5 Federal Reserve note featured here has a double print involving the second print, which contains most of the design for the front of the note. These notes can sell for tons of money, generally selling in auctions for anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000. This next error is an obstructed printing error. Since banknotes move through so many different printing stages, it's no surprise that occasionally a stray piece of material, usually a piece of paper, a staple, or tape, will come between the printing plate and an uncut sheet of notes. The result is a portion of the banknote has a blank area, also known as an obstructed printing area. Obstructed printing errors are popular with many collectors. These notes' values are always increasing dramatically, especially when the item that caused the obstruction is still retained, or in other words, stuck on the note. For example, in this $5 1907 legal tender note, it appears that a piece of thread is almost wrapping around the neck of Andrew Jackson. This note sold at a heritage auction in October of 2021 for well over $10,000. The next error on this list is a cutting error. This error happens when the sheets fail to align properly during the last stage of creating a banknote, the cutting process. Both sides of the note will be affected by this error. For example, this 1996 $100 Federal Reserve note shows a cutting error affecting the vertical alignment of the note. Banknotes are printed in sheets with margins separating the individual notes. When the cutting process is done well, the margins appear evenly spaced around the edges of the notes, and this is an important factor in the grade of the banknote. When the cutting is done exceptionally poor, a cutting error can occur. The value of a cutting error will be based upon how dramatic the error is and how much of the note is affected. This 2017 $5 Federal Reserve note has a cutting error that affects its horizontal alignment. This note sold for $400 in 2021 at a heritage auction. The next error on this list you've seen in some of my bill search videos, and that is a stuck digit error. This error happens when the numbering wheel for a banknote serial number fails to advance correctly. If one of the digits gets stuck but all the digits in the serial number still appear to be aligned correctly, then a mismatched serial number error occurs instead. If one of the digits advances only partially or a little too far and is not aligned with the others, then this is a stuck digit error. Part of the digit may be truncated and part of the adjacent number on the wheel might be seen. For example, this 1914 $10 Federal Reserve note has a stuck digit error affecting the second to last digit of its left serial number. The wheel is stuck between the 1 and the 2. These notes generally sell for thousands of dollars at auction. The next error on this list is a mismatched prefix error. As you know, it is standard procedure with currency printing to include the serial number in multiple locations on the banknote. Many notes, including US banknotes, have a prefix letter that accompanies the digits in the serial number. When the numbering wheels are accidentally set to different numbers, a mismatched serial number error occurs. US currency includes letters at the beginning and end of the serial number. Through 1995 series, the prefix was a single letter from A through L that corresponded with one of the 12 Federal Reserve banks around the country. More recently, all denominations above $2 now include a two-letter prefix, the first for the series and the second for the Federal Reserve Bank. An example of this error is a 1976 $2 Federal Reserve note with a mismatched prefix error. The right prefix is B, which corresponds to the note's black seal for the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, but the left prefix is H, the letter used by the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. These notes generally sell for around $2,000 at auction. An honorable mention error for this list is the PCB-LIC error. This is an honorable mention as these errors are only found on examples of the 1907 series $5 legal tender note, which are more commonly referred to as woodchopper notes. The error can be found on the back right of the note in the sixth line of the obligation clause, where it reads, "This note is legal tender at its face value for all debts PCB-LIC in private." This is where it should have said public, but a C was mistakenly placed in the place of a U. These notes are extremely rare and generally sell for around the $10,000 region at auction. That concludes this list of error banknotes that you should be looking out for in your pocket change and in any collection that you might inherit. Some of these are much more scarce to come across than others, and some of these show majorly dramatic examples of these errors to really outline and detail what they are. Hopefully this video was helpful for you. This is such a wonderful hobby. The worst case scenario when looking through coins or banknotes is you end up with the same money you started with, right? I absolutely love this hobby, but what I love more is the love that you all have shared for me and the channel, so keep sharing the videos, commenting your opinions and your finds in the comments below, and visit VarietyandErrors.com to utilize my free coin and banknote guides. Thank you so much. I will see you in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.